Start a car with the fuel pump that's not working, so we're going to dive into that, figure out why the fuel pump isn't starting. Yeah, whenever I turn the key, I don't hear the fuel pump, and it is back there underneath that seat right there. So we're going to figure that out right now. So went ahead and pulled the seat out, and that's where fuel pump's going to be located. Make sure you got a nice area where it's aerating, got some air movement, because it's going to stink like gasoline once you get those things open. So we'll get the screwdriver and bust that thing open. So once you get your plate off, your cover plate, before you even start taking things apart here, this is obviously into the fuel tank, and you just want to make sure that all your plugs look good. I'm going to probably have to clean these up because they are dirty. But before you start like pulling things out, just double check, make sure everything's pushed in. You got good connectivity across all your plugs. And then, you know, if everything looks good, you can give her a test turn, make sure. We'll go ahead and do that. Nothing. No sound at all. It should go wink. Got nothing. So we're going to go ahead and pull her out. Now we got all of our 10mm bolts off. Again, 10mm. Now you don't want to just go pulling on this thing. You want to get these hoses off. Now this is a pressurized line, so when you do start to remove this bolt, it will spew fuel. So I suggest that you go ahead and get some rags, line this area up so that you don't get so much fuel all over the place. This is just a fuel return line to go back into the tank, obviously the return. So when you release this, there is going to be fuel in here as well. So just be mindful that when you're removing the fuel pump cap here, there's going to be a lot of fuel that's happening. So go ahead and get this place, you know, covered up, rags, paper towels, whatever you can. Just keep it from, you know, spilling all over the place. It also prevents your interior from smelling like gasoline. So we'll go ahead and get this all cleared up here, and then we're going to go ahead and get this bolt removed and this hose removed, and we'll go ahead and lift this piece off. But we are going to go ahead and cover this area with some rags, and we'll be back once we've pulled this out. And just so you're aware, this is a 17mm socket for that nut. And if your fuel line doesn't come off, be very careful, but use the pliers that you use to remove the hose clamp, and squeeze it slightly and just rock it back and forth. You don't want to bend anything, you don't want to damage the hose, you want to just give it a little bit of work, because I mean, this car's from '95, so that hose has probably been on there for as long as probably since factory. So just do it nice and easy, and if you need to, you can start to lift this out. Once you've removed this, you can start to lift it out and kind of just walk the hose off nice and slow. But that's what we're going to go ahead and do. We're going to go ahead and get that off now. Once you've broken that nut loose and you're lifting it out, make sure you get the washer on there. That washer is a crush washer, and you want to make sure that it goes back in between the bolt and the pressure line, because that is going to help alleviate you over tightening it and causing these threads to get screwed up. So not a lot of fuel came out, but it's probably because the unit's no longer good. So we're just going to clean this up just a little bit. Oh, forgive me, I forgot to mention there is another washer that goes underneath your pressure hose. So make sure you get both that washer underneath and this washer on the top. Make sure you do not lose them. They have got to go back in the order in which they've been removed. Cool. Now it smells like gas. We walked the line off nice and easy. Again, we weren't trying to pinch it too hard with the pair of pliers. We just gave it a little bit of tightness and walked it back and forth while holding the gas tank cover. You can see the hose, it'll start walking back and forth all by itself. You do not want to damage this nipple here, because that's a pain in the ass. You got to replace the whole cap if you damage this. So now we're going to go ahead and remove it. Now during removal, do not come straight up. You got to just clear the studs. You have to tip it and just kind of work it out. All right, now once you've got it up and out, you want to let it drain a little bit. Looks to be a factory fuel pump. All right, I'm going to need my second pair of hands for this one because we don't want to be dripping fuel all over in the interior of the car. But now you got it this far, there is a little filter on the bottom of it. That's what's going to be holding a lot of the fuel. So you want to go ahead and either get you a cup or something to transport it with. I'm just going to throw some rags underneath it to make sure that it's not going to be dripping all over the place. And then we'll be right back. And now that we've got the fuel pump out, there is going to be some fuel remaining in that top line, in your pressurized line there. So just go ahead and dump it where you need to dump it. So from there, we're going to go ahead and remove the sock. So I was incorrect. I thought that twisted off, but it looks like with the factory ones, it's pressed in there with a pin. So we're just going to go ahead and we just slid it out from the bracket there. Just slowly walked it out. Just have a rubber piece on the base here. I was going to be installing a Walbro 450, but it appears that I'm going to have to solder the lines because this clip does not clip on here. And when I removed this from the top of the factory fuel pump, it actually requires you to push these two pins in, these two little gray pins here, and then from there you push this one in, and then it should slide out. Again, I had to work slowly but surely get this fuel line off of the nipple on the top of there. Again, you don't want to crush anything, leave any plastic behind, because that's really, really bad to have going into your fuel line. And like I was telling you, to be careful with that nipple there, because it goes right through into the fuel return. So you want to make sure that you're not bending it, breaking it, none of that stuff. You just want to be super gentle with it. I will go ahead. I don't know. I don't want to go back through this, but I got a Walbro 250 here. I'm just going to go ahead and throw in because it has the same pin configuration as the factory one. As you can see there, everything's the same location, everything's identical. So we'll just go ahead and throw this one in for right now. I don't need to do any hard wiring for a 450 right now. I've got plenty of time before I put in my other engine, so we can figure out what we need to do with this. Obviously, it's going to be cut and dry. We're just going to clip the cap off, and we'll wire it directly like this one is, and just bridge the power line into the factory power line, and we'll just leave that as it is. Try and keep everything, nice and clean. We'll do a little butt connector. We'll keep this in the event that somebody needs it. We'll just plug it into the 250, in the event that somebody needs the pigtail off of it. But we'll go ahead and get the 250 installed, because obviously we're just doing a factory engine right now, so I don't need the 450. It's a flex fuel unit as well, so when I do decide to do E85, that was going to be a perfectly fine addition to ensuring that everything is going to be working right. So we'll go ahead and get this bad boy installed, and we'll be back momentarily. So I just took the rubber planting piece off the bottom of the factory one, and I was just mocking up everything, making sure everything looks good, but they gave me a lot of hose. So in comparison, it's out of here. I got to cut off a decent bit, and this is also taller, so I have to take that in consideration. So I just got to cut just under, or just at the U on this fuel here. So I'll be snipping that up, making sure everything fits snugly. I'll be measuring twice and cutting once because I only have one of these, so be mindful of that. And hopefully we'll get this thing in here soon. And voila, finished product. Everything looks good. Everything's butted up nicely. When you're tightening down these fuel lines, you want to make sure they're tight, but they're not super tight. You don't want to cut into the hose, but enough that they're holding tight. Because I mean, obviously this thing's building pressure. I went ahead and cleaned off the top. I don't know if you guys remember what it looked like, but you can look back in the video. But we cleaned it up, and we're going to go ahead and throw this bad boy in there, get everything secured back on here, and we'll give the car a start. So we're going to go ahead and skip all the installation because it's just obviously reverse of the removal, but everything looks good, and here we go. All right, so everything's been reinstalled. When you reinstall those 10mm nuts on the top of there, do not tighten them. There's a rubber gasket. Yeah, there's a rubber gasket underneath there. You don't want to crush the gasket. You just want to create enough tightness, just tightness to hand. You'll feel it grab. You don't want to over tighten that because you don't want to cause any damage to that rubber gasket. And now that everything's installed, I'm not going to put that plate back on. We're going to check and see if we get any noise from the fuel pump. Because if not, then we know we have a wiring problem. So let's see here. So we have a wiring problem. Well, I got my multimeter here. So if I cross these, it should go to 1. Or 0.1, I should say. Okay, or 0, whatever. But when I put power, because it's currently got power, so when I put these in here, I got nothing. So that means our relay, or lack of power, is getting to, the fuel pump. So now we're going to check the fuel pump relay, check the fuel pump fuse. Because it's intermittent. It's been an issue. More than likely it's going to be the relay, because the relay is just not clicking over and sending power over. So we're going to check that right now and figure out if that's going to be our case. Luckily I have some relays already. Found our problem. The problem was the relay. So the relay is enclosed inside this gray box. You just got 2 little clips on the side. Throw you a pair of flathead screwdrivers in there, pinch those open, pull the relay out, which is enclosed, obviously, inside that box. And I did an inspection, because what I did initially was to ensure that either A, the fuse wasn't working, or B, the relay wasn't working, is I jumped the power. So I just created this little jumper here. You've got the fuel pump power here, and then constant power here, and I just jumped this pin and that pin on the inside of this clip here. It's a big brown clip, you can't miss it. It's on the left hand side, big gray box for holding the main relay. I jumped it and the fuel pump worked, and I was like, okay, well then that means the relay isn't working. So after I busted it out of its case, I checked the bottom of the relay, and the relay has some corrosion and buildup on it. So I have some electronic cleaner. I sprayed it down, wiped it up, and what we've got now is fuel pressure, which is good. That means the fuel pump is working. Just in case you couldn't hear it, we'll do that one last time. But boom, fuel pump's working. That's super sweet. I'm glad to see that, and we're just gonna go ahead and give her a start here in a second after I get the box back on there. Don't touch that while you're turning the key. Just don't touch it while you're turning the key. That's really bad news. 12 volts of electricity charging through that thing. Touch the bottom of that. You could short yourself. You can screw up your main relay. Just make sure that you're not touching that. Remove the key fully. After doing so, just to ensure that you're not going to hurt yourself or your car, because that's the last thing we want to do, is create more problems for ourselves. So everything checks out. We'll put the box back on there. We'll squirrel that back away in the corner there. Unfortunately, my car did not come with all the components underneath here. They were all pushed to the side, so I've been slowly but surely trying to get everything back semi-neat, out of the way of all of my pedals there, so I'm not kicking stuff, pulling on stuff, or bitching up wires. But we found out our problem with the fuel pump, and I'm glad it was something as simple as just breaking the main relay open, cleaning it up on the bottom there. 9 times out of 10, you can get these relays from O'Reilly's or AutoZone or anything like that, but they're like $50, and sometimes stuff is old, yeah, but it's just electricity and it might just be corroded and have some buildup on it. So take your time, see if you can figure out, save you some money. And I went ahead and got that all squared away, and we'll start the car so we can hear what's going on with the engine. So you probably could hear the put happening there. That is a burnt out valve. I got this engine to trade out for some SI wheels that I had, and the guy was like, yeah, it'll come with the transmission, it'll come with the engine, everything's really good, you shouldn't have any issues. And when I started the car up, it had a putting noise. Of course, with it being my first run, I thought, man, I messed something up. Well, upon further inspection, I replaced the injector. I replaced I ensured that my timing was correct. I checked my marks on the timing belt here. I verified that everything was correct in that retrospect. I still had the putt. So just happened to have it aligned, and the guy at the shop told me, he's like, sounds like you have a burnt out valve. Well, upon further research and discovering that that is a very common sound, that it is something like a train, it sounds like a train engine, putting around, yeah, the burnt-out exhaust valve seems to be the case. And it makes more sense as a burnt-out exhaust valve because I can hear it heavily coming out of the exhaust. So I'll go ahead and rip the cylinder head off of here, and we'll take a look. So you're going to start with these 5 head bolts. You're going to remove the valve cover. Obviously, you're going to make sure that you have all your wires pulled from there. You're going to remove your exhaust manifold, your intake manifold, and mark this positioning on the cylinder head. On the cam gear. Just take some chalk or a Sharpie or something and mark on both the belt and the cam gear, so that when you're done, you don't have to worry about doing the timing again. That's just going to ensure that you don't have to take the belt all the way off, go all the way down. I don't have my timing cover on here right now because I really don't drive this car very often. So it's just sitting here as it is. And when I do drive it, it's not in inclement weather, so I'm not worried about getting water and shit all over it. But we'll go ahead and start on that. Smart move to do. Obviously, you're removing a cylinder head. Drain your coolant. Drain your coolant. Just go ahead, get the coolant drained. You're going to get coolant all over the place if you don't. Yeah, we'll go ahead and get that started.